Testimony continues today in the trial of Derek Chauvin, the former Minneapolis police officer charged in the death of George Floyd. Today, the prosecution showed security footage from inside the Cup Foods store. That's where Floyd was just minutes before his deadly arrest. Christopher Martin, a Cup Foods clerk who actually interacted with Floyd, testified about selling him a pack of cigarettes and the bill that Floyd used to pay for it.
So, did you think that bill might not be legitimate?
I did.
So what did you decide to do?
I took it anyways, and I was planning to just put it on my tab until I second-guessed myself. And as you can see in the video, I kept examining it, and then I eventually told my manager.
All right. And when you told your manager, what happened next? What were you told to do?
He told us to go out to the vehicle and to ask him to come inside.
Well, for more on this, let's bring in CBS News' Michael George, who's on the ground there in Minneapolis. Michael, break down what we've seen so far on this third day of trial.
Well, Mola, we started off today hearing more from an EMT who happened to be at the scene at the time that George Floyd died. She testified that she wanted to assist George Floyd. She even asked the officers if she could provide medical assistance, and they told her she couldn't. And as you mentioned, we also heard from Christopher Martin, that cashier who interacted with George Floyd. There was a powerful moment in court today where he said he wished he'd never flagged that counterfeit $20 bill. He says it may have saved George Floyd's life if he had avoided bringing that up.
You can't escape the images of last summer after this happened, Michael. So what's the reaction been like so far there in Minneapolis?
Yeah, this is a community that has seen a lot of pain over the last 10 months. There's a lot of tension here in this community. There's boarded up windows. There's the National Guard here at the courthouse and fencing. I spoke with a pastor named William South Martin at the Brook Community Church here. He says that, going through this trial, hearing from these young witnesses is reopening a lot of old wounds, but he feels that in some ways this is a necessary process for this community to move forward and heal.
Michael George there in Minneapolis. Thank you, Michael. For the latest on the trial and how the testimony so far may be resonating with the jury in particular, let's bring in Margaret Kovera. She's a presidential scholar and a professor of psychology at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. Margaret, let's play part of Christopher Martin's testimony earlier. He, again, is the Cup Foods clerk who interacted with George Floyd just before his death, and he described what Floyd's condition was like when he was talking to him. Let's watch.
When you were communicating with him, can you describe for the jurors generally what his demeanor was like? What was his condition like?
So when I had asked him if he played baseball, he went on to respond to that, but it kind of took him a little long to get to what he was trying to say, so it would appear that he was high.
So you just had some signs that you thought he was under the influence of something?
Yes.
All right. But were you able to carry on at least some conversation with him?
Yes.
Well, when it comes time for deliberations, how do you think what his condition was like will play out with the jury, Margaret?
Well, it's one of the crucial pieces of evidence, right? Because basically the police officer's actions have to be contribute to the death in order for him to be convicted. And so if, in fact, George Floyd died because of his state, his health conditions, then it's a very important piece of evidence for the defense. The question, I thought, for that witness's testimony is that the prosecutor later brought out that he was stable on his feet when he was lunging. And so, sometimes people misspeak. Sometimes people don't get their words out properly. And I think that in total, that witness was very effective for the prosecution.
Yeah, the defense's case seems to rely heavily, at least in part, on Floyd's condition. We've heard some emotional testimony in this trial so far, including from a teenager and a 9-year-old. How could that emotional weight impact the jury?
Well, I think there's two things to think of here. One is how the jurors will perceive those witnesses because of the emotions they expressed. And our research suggests that they will be perceived as being very truthful because of that emotion that they expressed. But the other thing is to think about the type of emotion that that testimony engendered in the jurors. And we know that anger actually is a very effective prosecution tool. If you can get jurors to feel angry, jurors tend to be more punitive. And so to the extent that the jurors were angered by seeing those children in such distress now, that might play well for the prosecution as well.
We've seen video taken by witnesses as well as a security footage video used as evidence in this case so far. How could that amount of evidence, especially that visual evidence, impact the jury's decision?
Well, I think it's going to be very helpful in that we're not relying on witnesses' memories for what happened, which oftentimes will conflict. Instead, we have visual evidence that the jurors can evaluate on their own without having the intermediary of a witness there, and the problems that witnesses have with memory.
Of course, we will continue to watch. Margaret Kovera, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.